Okay everybody, coming back today for a real quick video on how to change the oil in a Toyota Highlander. This is a 2008 model to be specific, but this can be adapted to many years of models. So first step, you got to have an oil drain pan. Pick one of these up at any auto parts store, buy one online, but you definitely need one of these. So get this guy underneath the vehicle, and right here is the oil drain plug. So you'll need to understand some angles a little bit as far as how the oil is going to come out. Make sure you get the drain pan in the right location. This is a 14 millimeter, so get your ratchet out and break loose the oil drain pan bolt and then remove it. Make sure you haven't driven your vehicle recently, otherwise the oil could be pretty hot and burn your finger. And I also recommend once you get your oil drain pan bolt out, take that underneath the sink and wash it. It's probably got metal filings and dirt on it, so just get that clean. Now here we are in the engine bay. You're going to need to take off these three 10 millimeter bolts right here. This is the easiest way. You can also remove the bottom underneath the car to get to the oil filter. I find this easier. It's only 3 bolts as opposed to like 4 plus some of those plastic tabs. So right here, 3 10 millimeter bolts will take this shroud off. And again, I know you see me struggling a little bit, but I'm also holding a camera, so this is pretty tough. If you were doing this, it's going to be much easier than being able to use both hands makes this a lot easier. So just take this shroud off. You don't actually have to remove it from the engine bay. Once you get this third bolt off right here, that's going to the exhaust, you can just kind of twist the shroud out of the way over to the right hand side, and you'll see where I leave it. The oil filter is a little to the left. If you have large hands or you struggle getting the oil filter off this way, then you can go underneath the vehicle and remove the little plastic shroud. It's got several 10 millimeter bolts and get to it from underneath. But you've seen some of my other videos. I guess I'm blessed with small hands, so I can get to it. Alright, so with that shroud off, we're going to go back underneath here. I'm going to wipe off this. Ideally use a lint-free cloth. So wipe this off and go ahead and put the oil drain pan bolt back in. And the reason I do this is because now that the car is finished draining, I want to use the oil pan and move it up a little further to the front of the vehicle to catch any oil that falls down when I remove the oil filter. So once you get that in there, technically you should torque this bolt with a torque wrench, typically around 25 to 30 foot-pounds. However, you'll see I've used this technique for many years. I'm not super strong, but I was kind of taught this by my dad years ago, that if you're using a 3/8" ratchet, if you'll just choke up on it so you can't torque it. I use that technique. It's not the right one, I'll be honest, so please use a torque wrench. Now you can see the oil filter wrench I've got. Unfortunately, I cannot get a good view of this, but basically what I'm doing is getting the oil filter wrench on the oil filter to break it loose. I do recommend that you try to loosen it by hand first, because oil filters are frequently only hand tight, and you may not even need an oil filter wrench. But if you do, there's enough room for me to get down in there. So remove the oil filter. You see I dropped it. That's why I wanted to move the oil pan to the front. Now I'm going to stick the oil filter in the oil pan. Here's my new oil filter. So I'm just going to put this on. I'm going to hand tighten it as tight as I can. Now typically that's how most people put their oil filters on. It's just hand tight, as tight as you can get it. Some people recommend that you tighten it by hand and then go a quarter of a turn with your oil filter wrench. I've been changing oil in my vehicles for 25 years, and I've never done anything more than hand tight, and I've never had a problem. Then we just need to put this shroud back on, so it goes right back in place. And of course we'll need to put the 10 millimeter bolts back in it, and I'm speeding some of this up. There's no point in you watching me reassemble the vehicle. I'm sure you know how to put back what you took off, just the 3 10 millimeter bolts again. The one over on the exhaust can be a little tricky to get in because it's a nut instead of a bolt, but it shouldn't be too hard at all. So once you get the shroud put back on, really there's only one last thing to do, and of course that's to fill the vehicle back up with oil. Now I like to start when it comes to refilling the vehicle, and this is the bolt I'm talking about, the nut. Again, I'm having to do this one-handed, so it's a little struggle for me, but you shouldn't have any trouble with two. You could hold the shroud in place with one and put the nut on with the other. But once you get those tight, all the hard part's done. So when it comes to refilling the vehicle with oil, I like to take, if this is a 5-quart vehicle, I like to fill it with 4 quarts of oil. and then I like to give it about 5 or 10 minutes for the oil to drain into the pan, and then I check the oil level on the dipstick. I'm not going to show you how to use the dipstick and check the oil because I have a separate video on that, which I will link below in the description. So if you need to understand how to check your oil level on a dipstick, there's a separate video on that. But like I said, so I have a gallon of oil here. This vehicle takes 5 quarts of oil, so I'm going to start by putting a gallon, which is 4 quarts. Give it a few minutes to soak down, and then I'm going to check it on the dipstick, and then I will repeat that process until it is in the safe level on the dipstick, and then I finish up by taking the vehicle for a quick spin, coming back, waiting a few minutes, and checking the oil level again. And that's about it. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.